So welcome to the last naming video in the 2023 chemistry naming series that we've been doing. I know it's been a while since you probably have seen a video like this, but I do want to mention one quick thing with acid, which we may or may not have started to talk about. Acids are a very specific kind of chemical, and if you look at the table, when we did the naming videos before, we were talking about metals, nonmetals, and in a little bit of a way metalloids, but primarily it was these two. And we were able to cover really all of the periodic table. But something that you might not have realized is that we haven't given you anything that started with H yet. And that's specifically because chemicals that start with H, which you may or may not know right now are acids, have their own specific set of naming rules, and we're going to go over that really quick in this video. So, on this flowchart, which you may or may not remember, we did these videos before, you might have noticed that is your chemical metal at the beginning, and is the first element hydrogen? Well, that's going to be the acid video. So, here's what we need to work on. There's two kinds of acids, H with an element, or H with a polyatomic. That's it. So, if it's H with an element, it's just hydro, the anion name, ic acid. If it's a polyatomic, which again are some of these, all you need to do is change the ending that's an ate to an ic and an ite to an us. So again, we're going to change ates to ic and ites to us. So, for example, really good example talking about this H element one. You may or may not have heard, but a very common acid is hydrochloric acid. Okay, this is the acid that's in our stomachs, and this is a wonderful example of an acid. And I apologize, I don't have a really good place to put this, but this acid is one that would be considered binary. It's just hydrochloric. So really, the only thing we really need to worry about is this chlor part. You know the hydro, you know the ic, and because it starts with an H, it's going to be an acid. So we'll talk about that briefly, and we'll talk about this as well. So, long story short, to talk about those, if you see hydro, that means that it's only going to have two elements. So if it's hydrobromic acid, it's going to be H with Br. If it's hydronitric, well, it's going to be H with N. And there you go. The only other thing you really need to worry about is, as a refresher, the crisscross. You see, you also have to crisscross these acid ones. So make sure that you're doing that as well. Covalent is the only time that you don't have to do that. So we are going to crisscross for all these as well. And to do that, again, H is a +1 always. We know that. And bromine's a -1. Nitrogen's a -3. So this one is actually already good. But with the other one, this one's going to be H3N because you need 3 hydrogens to balance with a -1. And then I'm just going to put a little red line through this one. If you want, same thing as before, you could put the little like +1 for hydrogen over here, and bromine gets a -1, nitrogen gets a -3. You could do it that way as well. And over here, when you just see the two elements, HF or HI or HS, then all it is, it's going to be hydro, fluoric. Again, I changed the fluorine to fluoric, and then acid. And again, you'll notice these hydro ones all end in ic. This one is hydroiodic acid. And yes, you have to say acid every time. If you want to make sure you're doing that right, look at all these. acid, 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 acid. You want to tell your reader that you're dealing with one of those. With the other ones, really what it comes down to, the ones with the polyatomic, it's going to be 8 becomes ick, ite becomes us. And the way that I came up with a while ago to memorize this, in case you needed it, is I ate it, and it was icky. I wish that I had bit it, and it was delicious. I don't know if that helps anybody. Maybe it will, maybe it won't, but this is a way you can get it to work. Eights become ick, ice become us, and you're going to crisscross those as well. So if I see an us, okay, I know that this came from nitrite, because nitrite, ick, us. So this one came from PO3. Again, that's a -3, that's a -1. Again, those are on the back of the periodic table. And with the ick ones, if it's phosphor ick, that's going to be PO4, that's a -3. Permanganatic acid is MnO4, that's a -1. And you would just crisscross those as well. Again, it's an acid, so the first thing is H +1, which makes things really easy. It always starts with H. So this one would be HNO2. And again, I'm going to put those in parentheses, if you're remembering from the videos first semester. And for this one, it would be H3 parenthesis PO4. Again, making sure that I get these as low as I can. And those are crisscrossed correctly. With these, it all has an acid, of course. This is nitrite. So if it's nitrite, it's going to be a blue one, ite. This one is going to be ick, because that's sulfate. Sulfate becomes sulfuric. Carbonic acid, this is why your pops are bubbly. And this would be nitrite acid. And again, we're going to change that ite to an us. So that's going to be nitrous acid. This one will be sulfate acid. But I'm going to change that 8 to an ick. Oops. And this one, carbonate acid. But I'm going to change that 8 to an ick. And that is how you name acids. Honestly, best thing, if you can get this down, you'll be just fine. We've been crisscrossing for a long time. This should be just fine. And again, thank you for following along with these video series. Please, if you have any questions, ask Mr. Nenya or myself, Mr. Taylor, at any time.